Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete from Anxiety here. Welcome to today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get in today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety here on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. My guest today is a behavior specialist, trainer, coach, and four-time bestseller, the one, the only Anne Marie. How you doing?
Great. How are you, Pete?
Great. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some of the books that you've written.
Well, I am loving life, despite all the stuff that happens that tends to want my anxiety to go to 100.
No, I hear you there for sure.
And so I'm a behavioral specialist. That just means that I help people with their anxiety. I help them to understand who they are, so that and who other people are personality wise, so that they can, harmonize with each other, and everybody gets along. I have been had several things happen in life: car accidents, debilitating, not being able to walk. Let's see, TBI, traumatic brain injury, cancer, beloved people dying on me, and so here I am trying to spread the good news that mental health, a good mental health standing is possible, and that we can all achieve that, whether we're having a good day or not, and just to kind of keep those emotions under control and let them be our friends instead of the little enemies that try to run our lives.
It's the name of the show, versus anxiety. Yep. Yeah, you're right. You hit it right in the head too. Yeah. Well, that's awesome though. I mean, that's a lot to go on though. I mean, Jesus, car wreck, cancer, people die. Damn, you've had it all going on. You just kind of like hitting everything on that pinwheel, huh? You're just like, well, let's just spin the wheel and see what comes up next, guys.
It's life. Just spins.
So a four-time best-selling author, that's truly a great accomplishment. So congratulations on that alone. What kind of work do you do, like book-wise? What kind are you writing? Like anything in particular? Are you covering different topics in the behavioral space?
I do different topics in the behavioral space. I come from the, helping business people to run their businesses in, a systematic way, so that they can kind of get a jump on things, so that they have things in place. I train in different companies. It could be an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or, like a bigger organization. I just come in and do some training with them on the personality types, and how to interact with themselves and with their customers, so they know how to keep that customer retention. But basically it's about mindset and how to live life, on as much as we can, on like that steady, this is the only place where flatline is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Just to kind of keep that good pace that prevents us from going down rabbit holes and having days that are filled with, can't get yourself out of a paper bag kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting though, that you're talking to them about the different types of people, because you don't hear a lot of people talk about that though, like the different personality types, because you can't approach everybody the same way. You have to always kind of assess what their personality is, or how they take information in. And I think that's really interesting that you're covering that though, because I don't think a lot of people talk about that. I didn't really know much about it until where I work now. They did a training about it, and I was like, yeah, you're right. You think about it, like these different people have different personalities, and if you watch them, people take different information different ways. Like they all have their own personalities, the way they do certain things, the way they respond to things, all falls into that category. So I think that's really interesting of an area to be in though.
Yeah, I thought it was really, once I started, I just wanted to know more. I was just very inquisitive as to, how we function, especially myself, because I'm one of those analytical personalities,
Yeah.
that kind of sits back and watches things happen and then responds. And I was just amazed, even in my own family. I'm one of four. I'm the oldest, and just the different perceptions, right? Like all four siblings saw the same thing, but each sibling saw it different and
Yep.
perceived it different and walked away with different things,
Middle
nuggets.
child here, by the way, just so you know.
My middle child just passed away, meaning my
Oh man.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
so
sorry to hear that.
gone. So it's just me and my sister, and yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that. How long ago did he pass away?
Well, one passed away at COVID, the one that was right
Mm,
after me, and then my other brother just passed in February. So
yikes. I'm so sorry to
yeah,
hear that. That's always rough when you lose a family member like that.
yeah. But he was considered our middle child.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, like, you're right though. I think you touch on that point really well because it is I see things differently. If my brother sees it differently than I see it, then my younger brother sees it because he was always babied. My brother always got favoritism and I always felt like I was the in-between person, never really heard. So
Mhm.
I love that you brought that up because that's a really good point too, because it's like you do see it from different aspects. Everybody has a different tell to what the story really was for them.
Yeah. And it's good to see other people's perspective because, I come at it from my side, right? And then they're coming at it from theirs. And sometimes they see things or saw things, because they're not here anymore, but they saw things that I totally didn't see at all. So it was good to talk about, things that happened in the family and,
Yeah.
you know, share stories. And they were like, that's not what happened. And I'm like, yes, it is. And
Yes, I remember that conversation very well. Oh, no, it never happened. What? That's not what happened. You're lying. You're making that up. No, I know what happened because I was there. And this is coming from my mom, too. She's like, I never did those things to you. I was there for them. I think I clearly remember these things happening. And, she'd always say that to my kids all the time. Oh, I never did that. Your dad's just making things up. But am I really, though? Because I was there experiencing these things. And it's always so interesting because she always denied, well, I never did it. But my grandmother did the same thing too. So I'm figuring that maybe that's where she got it from. Because my
Mhm.
grandmother was like, oh, I never did that too. I never reached back and did these things. And she always tell her these wild stories. But I'm like, your grandmother be driving the street, reaching in the back seat like this, swinging at us. I'm just like, and she's like, no, I never did that. Your mom's just making up. And I noticed it though, between the two of them, they do both say the same thing. Oh, no, I never did that. What do you mean? I never did that. That's just, you're just making things up or whatever. I'm like, but are we really though? I just like, it's so funny though, because you just see how they both inherit the same thing. And it was so funny to see when you start really watching some of their behaviors, what they do and things like that.
Mhm.
But that's so interesting to be in the behavioral space. So what got you into that space though? I mean, that had to be so fascinating after you start noticing little things about people though.
Yeah, I was introduced to it years ago when I was in the sales space. I mean, I still am, but
Yeah.
they had someone come in, and that was like my first, because I was really young
Yeah.
at the time, and that was my first like aha moment that I'm not bad. I'm not a bad person. It's just my personality. Now,
Hmm.
it's not an excuse to act wrong or to treat people incorrectly, but it's an understanding of, oh, these are my key characteristics. And so how can I work my life better? And these are your key characteristics. So if you come walking into the room all flamboyant and me who's quiet is like, I have to understand that that's who you are and
Yeah.
that's how you function and this is how I am and this is how I function, and my knowing about you helps me to communicate with you better, to treat you better, to understand you better, and to help you better. So
No, I agree with that 100% because that's what a problem I have now is that some people just don't understand my personality. And a lot of
mhm,
them are like, oh, he's such a dickhead. Oh, he's such an asshole. So they were literally telling people this as they're hiring them where I work now. And I
yeah,
deal in customer service. So it's so funny because it makes me laugh because it's like, I'm not. I'm just honest. I just don't sugarcoat things. But I have also remember at the same time that you can't approach everybody the same way. So that comes back to that factor. That you have to be careful how you say things to people because there's very sensitive people. And I had that situation happen too, where I explained something to somebody in like the nicest way possible, and they still got upset and started crying about it. And then it was just like all I said was I didn't say anything wrong, and everybody else around is like, "Oh, you didn't say anything wrong." I'm just like, yeah, I don't. But it's like it's the fascinating thing about customer service though, is because you see so many people at such a rapid pace. You being in sales at the time, you'd get it too. Because you see different types of people that come in and have certain personality traits, say certain things. And it changes though as you go through the different older generations. Though you can see some of the things they say are just like Yeah, I'm not going to compliment on that. I'm not going to comment on what you're saying right now. You're saying something very sexist, or you're saying something very racist. I'm not going to give in to
Yes.
that, unfortunately. But I do understand their mindset of that. That's what they grew up around. So you can't really sit there and hold that against them if that's what they were around for so long. It's like that's just their mindset. You're not going to change that on a lot of them. They're not going to, you know what I mean? So I don't let it bother me. And at the same time, I don't continue to fuel the fire further where they start making these kind of comments. I just kind of steer away from them. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm not getting into that conversation, because it's just like, oh no, red flag. As soon as those certain things start being said, you're like, no, I don't want no part of this conversation. I'm good right now.
Yeah, and
It's so
it
hard.
gives you, having that knowledge gives you tools to be able to, turn situations around. Like
Yeah,
you said, in sales, you can't treat, uh, you know, because a dominant personality, let's say, just wants to know the bottom line. What's the price? What am I going to pay? What's my interest? How much does it cost? When can I get it out the door?
yeah,
That kind of thing. A high I personality is like, what are all the fun things about it? Tell me all the fun things about it. And then they don't care about anything. They just want to know if it's fun, and then there's me who's like, wait a minute, how many miles per hour and how much gas mileage can I get? And, all of these other things. And then there's the steady personality that's concerned with all of the things that
yeah,
everybody's concerned, with, and makes their decisions a lot slower. And so taking into account that, a sale doesn't always happen the first time you meet someone. We have 11 seconds from the time people see us, for them to make up their mind whether we're somebody they want to do business with or not, or
yeah,
they want to hang out with you or not, right? So those minutes, I mean seconds, are very important, which gives you minutes later if you handle yourself properly. And letting people walk out the door feeling good 90% of the time brings them back, especially for the ones that takes them a minute to make that decision. You haven't necessarily lost a sale, and maybe if that wasn't for them at the time, the way that you treated them will give you referrals for later, because they felt valued and they felt like you treated them well. So they will come back in some way, whether by themselves or in the form of referrals. And that's the highest compliment that people can pay us, is that, we've treated them well enough for them to trust us with their friends and their family members. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I get that. Yeah, it's kind of like that with the podcasting too. You think about it, because a lot of people I meet, some people even I usually been on referring everybody, because everybody calls me the master networker, because I'm always good at connecting other people. Because I usually interview people first, and then I send them out to everybody else, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, somebody mentioned your name the other day." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not shocked, honestly, at this point. It really is not shocking." It's funny to hear though when two people I know actually had a scenario on one show called Mentally a Badass, where the host Justine and the guest Melissa, which is a friend of mine, she does the Emotionally Unavailable podcast. They both were talking, and then like about 10 minutes into later, and 10 minutes at the end of the conversation, with the 10-minute mark could go for the whole recording, you start hearing my name being brought up. Oh yeah, have you heard about Pete versus anxiety? And I just start laughing, and I was just like, oh shit, they're talking about me, man. And it's so surreal, because it's like all I'm doing is just having a conversation with people, but it's having that much impact on people that they're talking about me, and my name's being brought up to other people. And they're like, "Oh yeah, hey, listen, I was talking to this person pre-interview, and they mentioned your name." I was like, not really shocked at this point anymore. It may sound egotistical, but at the same time, it feels great, because it's like, you're having that much impact on people as you go, that they're talking about you to other people, and then how many other people are they talking to on top of that? Hey, listen, have you been on this show yet? This guy named Pete, runs a show called Pete for Anxiety, and things like that. And I use a pod matching site where I match with guests on too, and they leave comments and stuff. Well, you can see people's comments and stuff, and they'll just, give you raving reviews, or what do they feel about you. And it's the same thing with the guests, and it helps people, because it's just like, the same thing as a sales interaction. You're leaving them happy, they'll leave you a good review, and people see that and go, okay, well, I want to interact with this guy, because apparently this guy's got something here I need to be a part of, and it's the same thing, but it's so interesting though. Like I said, as soon as I saw human behavioral specialist, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna love this conversation. So what are some of the other books though that you've written too? I know you've done the one, but you're a 4-time bestseller. What are the other 3?
I have, well, the three are mine that I wrote just on my own. One is
Okay.
about mindset, like 31 Days to a Stable Christmas, because, a
See,
lot of
that title was interesting. Just real quick, that one had caught my attention. I was like, what is that one?
and it's all about getting through the holidays and
Yeah.
understanding that you have to set boundaries for yourself
Yeah.
and for the people around you so that everybody can have a good time and have good memories. And then the other one is actually a Bible study, but it's about self-care, and it's based on the book of Esther in the Bible. uh,
Okay.
and the third one is it's called Diary of a Fat and Morning Person.
Yes, that's the other one I was thinking of. I was like, dude, that was a great title.
And it's all about really addiction. It's about addiction to either drugs or alcohol or whatever your addiction happens to be, and how things really changed, during the pandemic. It's
Yeah.
about addiction and loss, because that's when I lost, my first brother. And just how our lifestyles can have a major impact on the quality and the quantity of life that we have, and how to build our mindsets and our habits to where we're leaving a good legacy and we're living a good life.
Yeah. I
So
think that's
that's
awesome.
yeah.
To touch back though, the boundaries thing, I think is really
Mhm.
great. I don't think a lot of people set boundaries, and I think the problem is that a lot of people feel like when they do, people feel they're being selfish. Do you want to give some people advice, like when setting boundaries, what's the best way to go about it that it doesn't come off that way to people?
Mhm. Well, the best I think is to have a conversation with the people that you're inviting, or if I mean, I have family members and friends that are famous for using holidays and get-togethers as platforms for their little soapbox. Um,
Yes.
and so we have to kind of have that conversation where, this is my house, this is my little castle, and you're not going to come in here and ruin the whole day. Are there things that you need to talk about that we need to clear the air for, whether it's with me or somebody else right now, so you don't feel the need to bring it up when we're at the table trying to eat and trying to enjoy Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever holiday it is. Because um, walking in the spirit of forgiveness helps those things not to happen, because somewhere along the line that person wasn't made to feel important. They were silenced, they weren't treated the way that they wanted to be treated, they never spoke up about it. So now it's like this festering wound that's there, that's pussing all the time and never really gets healed, because they never share how they were affected, they never share how they how it impacted them. And I just think it's very important to at least once or twice to approach people to let them know, this really affected me. This really hurt me. This is this situation that happened. And like we were talking about before, that person may be so caught up in their own stuff that they're not even aware that they hurt you in any way, shape, or form. Because
Yeah.
hey, I'm just being me. It's okay to be me, but what me are you being? Because it is okay to be you, but not when you're hurting other people. And if you don't know you're hurting them, having those conversations helps you to see that maybe you are, and maybe some things need to change. um, a lot of relationships, I think, are cut off, cut short, because people don't have conversations anymore. Everybody's on
Yeah.
their phone,
Yeah.
even when you're
Yeah.
together. There's just too many opportunities not to have those conversations, and they're uncomfortable. you
Oh yeah.
know they're very uncomfortable, but your best that could be your next best friend that walks with you the rest of your life, just because you took 5 minutes to figure out how this thing hurt them,
Yeah.
or if you had said a different word, it would have gone better with them.
I think the conversation is the strongest part of it, because I think that's what most relationships fails, because people don't talk about things. They always go, "Well, I'm mad about something," or then they bring up some stupid reason why they're mad. It's like, okay, I get you're mad. I hear where you're mad, but really, is that really something to be mad about? But it's also people don't feel like they're being heard either a lot of times.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I know that that was different versus my first my one of my past relationships with a narcissist was different though. Obviously that's a whole nother dynamic there. We'll get to second, but my current marriage right now, I'm a part of now. We talk about a lot of stuff. We've had real honest conversations, and they're rough. Like I'll be the first to tell you, they were rough. They rough. You get deep down into everything and start talking about stuff, and it gets ugly.
Hmm.
But it's not meant to be ugly to someone else. You're just sharing your feelings. Like this is how the person feels. Now it may feel like you're being attacked, but it's not the intention. the intention of the conversation is to put everything out there so everyone knows everybody's feelings, and you guys can figure out how to work through the feelings together versus trying to do it separately and just, causing more friction. And I think that's the part people get afraid of, is that when you get into that part, they don't want to know what the other person's going to say, because they'll take it so serious, like, oh god, you said this to me. It's starting to get so worked up. But it's like, oh, hold on, this person's talking to you. This applies to everything, like suicide too, and everything like that. If this person is talking to you, this is a benefit that you don't realize. Listen, talking is powerful because they're feeling like they're being heard, regardless of whatever the situation is. And I'm sure you can back me up on that one, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like, I feel like those conversations don't happen, or they do and they go wrong because people are too quick to jump to conclusions when someone says something they don't like.
And that old saying, there's a reason why we have two ears and one mouth. I don't think we listen to each other enough. We're so quick to have a comeback as soon as somebody says something, to be snippy and just come back and say, oh no, I didn't do that, or whatever your answer might be, and we don't listen.
That's me. I'm raising my hand because that's me. Sometimes I have to, it's something I have to work on, and I could agree that she's 100% correct, guys. I do the same thing sometimes. Like, I'll jump with the quick conclusion, but it's from my past relationships. With my wife, it's different now. She's not the type of person. She's like, oh no, I don't think so. We're not doing those things. The way she approaches things are way differently. And she's not the type that tolerates that. She's like, oh no, we're not going to keep doing those kind of things. But sorry, didn't mean to cut you up, but that was a great point that I had to jump in and say.
Yeah. I think it's important that when we're hurting, that we're careful not to hurt other people, because it's so easy to do that. It's so easy to be hurt, and to where, you're not being heard because, you're talking over the other person as they're trying to make their point.
Yeah.
Or you've already drawn your own conclusions, and you're not even willing to listen to what they have to say. So it's really important that we listen to each other, and just even keep quiet, or make mental notes of things. But definitely, I think it's good, when you're having conversations, not to listen so that you have a good comeback, but to listen to that person's heart, to see where they're coming from, to validate what they're feeling, so that things can change, you
No, I
know?
agree 100% with you on that one. I do. I think if you have to listen, I think it's the hardest part. Like you said, people are listening for that comeback. Oh, I'm going to come back with something nastier, but it's not the intentions of this conversation. It's just to get your feelings out there, to see how the other person's feeling, or, do a temperature check. Because a lot of times when people say, hey, let's do a temperature check, see everybody's at, don't try and go into it argumentatively, because the conversation's not going to end well. Like, what's the point? You're not here to have a debate. You're not here to argue with things. You're here to listen to what each other have to say. And I think that's where a lot of people get to. They just listen, but then they want to react so fast because it's like they're so offended by something somebody says, and just goes, like that whole reaction, like, oh, they just said that about me. Oh, it's just like, it's crazy, because I've done that before. I was so quick to react, but it's things I learn as I go. I'm learning that, I need to listen. And sometimes I'm at fault for that too. I'm so hot, I'm so emotionally or charged at that point. I'm just ready to start responding right away rather than listen, and I think that's the other hard part too, is for me admitting when I'm wrong. Is just, I don't know what it is about it. I just fight it so much. And I'm like, I don't want to admit I'm ever wrong in a conversation, though I know I completely fucked up, or I did something bad, and I'm getting called out about it. And it's stinging, but it's the truth though. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the truth. You did these things, accepting the fact you did it. Yeah, that's the hard part for me.
Yeah. And it's a good, words are really important to me,
Mhm.
not just because I'm an author, but if think about it this way, you got the word react, and you've got the word interact. And the word in interact is a positive word.
Yeah.
You're in with that person when you have a conversation. You enter, like you've entered into their room, and you've entered into their lives, as opposed to when you react. So that means if you've reacted to something, now you have to act again, because it's not over, because you didn't let it play through and you didn't listen. Whereas if you're interacting, you're inviting that person into your life, you're inviting that person into your conversation. So if you just kind of look at the word itself, interact and react, they're totally, different. They each have different outcomes, but the interactive outcome is way more positive than the reactive outcome, because they're,
Yeah, you're right.
we shouldn't shoot and ask questions later.
Damn, you sure that doesn't work too well? Come on now. That's worked so well in so many conversations, you know. Just start making what is it? What does he say? I'm making the buckshot approach. I'm just gonna shoot till I hit something, you know, that doesn't work either. You know,
Mhm,
just start
mhm.
start slinging insults out there until you get something that sticks. It just doesn't work like that, guys, you know.
Yeah.
It's so funny though, because it's just like, you know, people you watch people argue all the time, you're listening to them just taking shots at each other. It's like, then you have to go back and apologize for everything you just said. It's like I think that people, when it gets to feelings though, they're just so scared to talk about their feelings, because that, you know, as a man, it makes you feel vulnerable. You know, you to every other man around you right now in society would tell you that they're wusses or whatever word, whatever derogatory term you want to use for them. We won't go down, and we all know what they are. But you know, it's
Yeah.
and then it's when women are sharing too much, and oh, they're so emotional. But it's like, really, are they though? But they're sharing their emotions, telling you that something's really got them going. You
Right.
know, I feel like both sides should be able to share them without someone judging one or the other. You know, and it's scary that that's how it is now, because it's like, then you get mad when we don't say something, and then when we say something you get mad. It's like, you can't have both ways of this conversation go that way. It's not how it works,
Yeah. I agree with that.
you
Yeah.
know. And it's just crazy, because it's like, you know, with it being Men's Mental Health Month, I've been seeing all these videos online. I don't know if you've ever seen any of these that are like people insulting, making jokes about it, but it's like the statistics are there. They don't lie. Numbers don't lie. You're
Yeah.
big in analytics, you would know, you know. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Like, you can't lie to numbers. Like, you can say what you want, but the numbers are in front of you. They're saying that 50% of the population are men, 80% are killing themselves at an alarming rate. It's like,
Yes.
and then you're sitting here making jokes about it. It's like, it's funny that these people kill themselves, but it's like, you want to turn around and be like, well, okay, if somebody dies in your family, don't expect us to show sympathy to you because this is what you decide to post on the internet. But it's like, you know, I think that's the biggest issue then too, is like, you know, not trying to be hateful to the reaction, because then you're feeding it even more, because now you're giving into their hate, and now you're feeding your own hate into theirs because you hate what they're doing. But at the same time, it's just like, it's crazy that these videos are popping up everywhere. Then these younger girls are doing it too, and it's like, well, what do you think they're getting it from? They're watching you do it. What do you mean? They're watching you people on the internet post these things. And you know, social media is such a dangerous place for a lot of people, because that's where the real, like, real interesting fact starts coming in. It's like, you know, when social media got introduced, I had a guest on the show named Mr. Whiskey. Him and I were talking about it. I think he said the statistic was 20% of young males suicides went up when social media was introduced, because now you got to think that you can bully people and you can reach them even further, versus back when we were younger, you had just a phone, and then AOL Instant Messenger really was the only really place, you know, you could get to, like, Instant Messenger, and I think MSN was the other one, the Microsoft one, or whatever that one was. You know what I mean? Like those were the only two ways really to reach anybody at that point, unless you were physically standing in front of them. You could text them on there and hope they see it if they're even online,
Mhm.
or, you know, email, like, you know. But email, you know, was still new at the time too, you know. And then, you know, computers are still getting to that point. But you know, access to the internet is where it just started. Then now you have Facebook, you have MySpace came into play, and then you went MySpace to Facebook. Now Facebook is there, you know. And then now you have Instagram, you have Snapchat, you have TikTok, you've got all these different sites. What is it? Vine, all these different things that people can reach you now. And you're no longer protected by just a limited space of where they could get to you. Now it's, they can just harass you anywhere around the world. And it's sad. It honestly is that that's where we're going to, is that we've chosen to do these things. And then, you know, then the younger kids are getting harassed, and then they're not only getting bullied at school, they're getting bullied online. And it's really sad.
Mhm. Mhm. And I think it's important to, from the behavioral aspect of it, is to understand who we are.
Yeah.
Because when you have a good positive image of yourself, then when somebody comes along, you already know the truth.
Hey, whiskey.
You're not going to fall for a lie. And
Yeah.
so it's really important to know who we are as people, that we are good people, hopefully, and that we just come from a heart of, you just want good for other people. And when you have that core value within you, it gets a little harder, I think, to get sucked in by this stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and even, we have to, those are some of the boundaries that we have to put in place, where, somebody sent me a uh, a link the other day. uh Maybe not the other day, it may have been a little bit longer, but I was in a space where all I needed to see was the first paragraph, and it was like, "Do not read this right now." And
Yeah.
it wasn't even anything bad. It was just that I wasn't supposed to be reading that right now, and I knew it.
Yeah.
And I texted the person back and I said, because people will, like, especially for me, I don't know about you guys, but they'll see something and they're like, "Oh, you got to watch this. It's funny." Or Mr. Whiskey.
Yeah, it's Mr. Whiskey. Speaking of Mr. Whiskey, not to interrupt you, he
Oh,
did make a very good point. This is a gentleman I interviewed, fantastic host. He runs the show, couple of nukes. Check him out, guys, for sure. He says
mhm,
the internet, especially social media, has a dramatic desensitized
mhm,
people to respect and the value of human life. The amount of sexual, immoral, dark humor, and gore online is sickening. And he's
yeah,
100% correct. But
yeah,
no, I agree. I've gotten that sense of feeling where you start I had a situation like that too. It's funny you say that because this person and I were going back and forth, and her claims were that I was trying to steal her limelight because I have my podcast, and she was on TikTok, for example. So basically, what it was is that she felt that I was trying to steal her limelight, and I'm like, no, I have my own things to do. Like TikTok's the least of my concern at this point. So basically, she sent me this giant message. I'm talking like paragraph,
mm,
like a short story type thing. And I was like, well, respectively, I was like, I didn't even read it, honestly, is what I told her. And she got mad because she's like, well, start saying all these other things to me. I was like, I'm going to be honest with you 100%. I didn't read it all. I didn't feel like the need to because I just don't care. I'm not going to give into this drama of social media where you want me to feed this monster that you're continuing to trying to make me to be. I'm just going to walk away from the situation. And then they got even madder because you're not giving into their situation too, which is always funny because, when you deal with narcissists and things like that too, that's what they feed on is that reaction of what you're doing.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Well, basically, she just wanted it was a positive article, but it was like really deep about certain things. And she was like, "Can you read this for me?" And, basically, I'm supposed to decipher whether she could put this on her social media or not. And I'm thinking, what about this did you see that you thought of me to send it to me? Because I can't read this right now. And so
Yeah.
she give me an answer, and I'm like, pray about it and see if you're supposed to put it on your own social media, because I can't. And that's a boundary that I set up for myself, because maybe years ago I would have probably read it and given her an answer, but it's not my place. It's your social media page, and this isn't good for me to read right now. It was about grief and about something
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
something.
That's, yeah. Especially with
No,
your
you
recent
could
loss.
see
Yeah.
the yuck right away, and it wasn't time for me to be reading this yuck right now, because it wasn't serving me. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. No, I mean,
but
like you
but
said, with your recent loss, it's just something definitely you don't want to see.
mhm,
And when
mhm,
it comes to social media, you do have to be careful what you're posting because it'll come back to haunt you later on. A lot of people don't
yeah,
realize when you put it on the internet, it's there. So get ready for it to come back to you,
mhm,
and things like that too. And that's the crazy part about it is I don't think people realize that a lot of us are quick to start posting crazy stuff. And like Facebook came back on me one time because I put some post out there a long time ago, some meme I had posted. I thought it was funny or whatever. Came back and I got banned for a few days because I couldn't say anything because it was this post from like 12 years ago. I'm like, wait a minute, 12 years ago this post was made. I posted nothing close to this since then, but now you're penalizing me now. That's ridiculous. It's like,
yeah,
come on, social media, stop. But yeah, me and Whiskey though, he was really great guest. He and I were discussing things that he did talk about religion too, which I want to ask you about your book that you said was like was written by the one of the passages in the Bible, correct? Isn't that what you were saying?
yeah, mhm.
So, what is the premise of the book? Because I'm curious though, because I recently, before starting this show, I recently accepted faith, so I'm very interested in these things. Any kind of faith topics, I like to go into because I'm not scared to talk about anything on this show. So please tell me a little bit more about it. I'm very interested.
So I think w- the way to sum all of the books up is coming from a place of love,
Yeah.
because God is love. He loves us.
Mm-hmm.
We hate ourselves more than he hates us. He
True.
doesn't hate us, right? He doesn't. So it's not God who hates us, it's the enemy who hates us, because I do believe in good and evil, like
Yeah.
God and Satan. So I believe in that, and there's just this innate within us to, whether we listen to other people or we listen to ourselves or we listen to voices that we heard in the past, you know um even, for me, like we were talking about before, all of these things that have happened to me in my life, I started feeling like God was against me. And not that I didn't want to have anything to do with him, because it was like a push pull for me,
Yeah.
because I had great experiences with him when I was little. And then at a certain age, things started changing, and then the accidents started happening, and the not being able to walk started happening. So when you have those, for me, it's like I was saying before, if you're in the word and you know what's in the word and you know what belongs to you, that's like your manual, right? So you're not going to put the screws in the wrong place. Everybody needs to read the directions. And if you're not reading them, then you're not going to know everything that belongs to you. So when you know what belongs to you, like when
Yeah.
you buy a house, right? You have a deed. This is your property line. This is, you're getting 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, this, that, and the other, right? That to me is what the Bible is. This is everything that you're getting. This is your benefits package. And when you take on a job, you want to know what your benefits are, right? So read Psalm 103, read other Psalms that tell you, even right now I'm going through a little something, and I just have to be in a state of gratefulness and a state of knowing that God loves me, and that, the line's only going to go so far.
Yeah.
God allows things. I may have caused some of that, I mean, I can go back and I could say to you, my rebellion caused this, my choice caused that, my
Yeah.
thoughts caused this. um and sometimes it's not our fault. I've had times where I'm sitting in traffic minding my own business, and people are texting and going 55 miles an hour and slamming into me when I'm just sitting there waiting for the light to change or for the next person to move. So I didn't cause that, right?
Yeah.
But I see how God answered my prayers through it, how good things came out of it. And I always try to look for the good thing. I'm not going to, I'm old enough now where I'm not going to play the, woe is me card. And if I do happen to pull it out of the deck, I'm not going to slam it onto the table. I'm just going to put it back and not
Right.
use it.
Yeah.
So all of my books are about, the love of God and how he wants what's best for us, no matter what's happening. And one of my favorite scriptures is, well, there's a few of them, a lot of them actually, but he makes everything beautiful in its time. So no matter how ugly things are right now, he's going to make it beautiful. Romans 8:28, he turns everything around for my good. So I am looking to see, how's this going to turn for my good?
Yeah.
Because 99.9% of the time it does. Even in the middle of, cancer. What am I learning here? How can I best use my time? And now I look back and it was as much pain as I was in and all the healing that was going on. There's a lot of good stuff going on, and that's what I'm going to hang on to.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask what kind of cancer it was?
It was breast cancer.
See, there's a great book, by the way. Have you ever read the book called the Mansectomy I've Always Wanted? It's by Erica Newberg. Really great book. You should check it out sometime for sure. She actually was a guest on the show.
Mhm.
I'll actually send you the interview in your email, and you can check it out. It was a really good book, but it talks about what people go through and the mindset they're going through in that situation. And Erica was really, really just intense about it. She was straight up front, showed like all the scarring and all the other stuff, and it was really, really powerful. And I read it myself, and a lot of people, I was telling people I was reading this book, they're all looking at me weird. I'm like, they're like, what the hell is that? I'm like, oh, it's got to do with breast cancer. It's a breast cancer memoir, basically. And people are just looking like, I'm like, yeah, they're going to be a guest on my show. I was like, yeah, well, no, I'll read it. I'll check it out. Because I reached out to Erica, and she had the book. And I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. She's like, do you want to read it? Yeah, I read it front and back. It was something to see, like, but it's a better understanding of people, what you went through and things like that too, and I think it's just, yet again, we're back to that thing where people are quick to judge you when you say things. And it's like, well, I'm reading this book. You don't like it, you don't have to read it. It's your own fault. I'm sorry you won't enjoy this. This book is great, honestly. I may not be a female, I may not understand exactly what she went through, but this book better gives you the idea for someone that's going through that. You can understand their mindset. So you
Yeah.
don't have to ask them 20,000 different questions. You'll know a little better understanding. And Erica said that she had such an overwhelming response from husbands that their wives had it, or somebody they'd known, and these males that were reaching out, which is just, I'm like, that's awesome, because I don't feel like the only one reading it. And at the same time, I couldn't give a fuck. Honestly, I'll read this regardless. It was great. It was a great book. I mean, just because the topic doesn't fit everybody's, cup of tea, it's just like, but I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it yet. She's really great, real nice. She was, like I said, she was a guest on the show. We had a really great conversation about it. So, I love those kind of books, that stuff. The religious books I love too. Like I said, as becoming a man of faith myself, I started learning more stuff. I'm always more fascinated. I have the what is that? I have, one of the Bibles that reads to me in my ear all the time. I listen to every so often, things like that. So I'm slowly making it through while juggling 10,000 other books I'm reading too. That for the different guests coming on the show. And things like that too. So, anything new coming up? You got anything new planning that you haven't told
I
us about yet?
do. I do.
Ooh,
I
okay.
actually started a blog, so I just finished 90 days
Is
with
this available through your website where the blog is? I'm trying to
yeah,
figure out.
it's on the
Okay. All right, guys.
um,
All right.
private life at .com is the website.
Yep.
And so my blog is there for 90 days with John. And then I'm doing 90 days with Jesus right now. And then
Yeah.
Paul and David are coming up. And I'm also coming out with another book, which is called Life After Fusion, which
Okay.
is going to be about, the healing process with a surgery that I had, after the accident that I was telling you about. So
Yeah. Are you go in detail in the book about the accent and everything too, so
yeah,
we
I'm
can read
gonna
it?
I'm gonna go detail
Okay. Okay.
with it, and the I have it's going to be like in three parts. So
Oh,
my
okay.
PA is going to do part of it. I'm going to do part of it from like the patient, portion of it, and then I have a friend who wrote her own book, who's a physical therapist. So it's like three different sections, if you will, you know,
Okay.
from the doctor's perspective, from the patient's perspective, and then of course the physical therapy comes after. So it's life after fusion. It's going
That
to be
that's so cool though. You got the PA to add in. That's gonna be an interesting perspective. When
yeah.
when do you know when the book's coming out? Is there a date yet, or are we still in the process of
I'm
writing it?
shooting. My part's mostly done, because I was in a double degree program for ministry and stuff like that. So I went into, my thesis was how dopamine and serotonin help our bodies, and all about neurotransmitters and things like that with regards to how we handle things.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, and then it was like, we're not doing the thesis as the last part of the master's anymore, or whatever. And I'm like, what? and then it just kind of got to this, use it in a book, and I was talking to, her name is Jamie. So I was talking to Jamie, and I said, Jamie, I said, I feel like it's okay to talk about it right now. And I feel like, writing a book, would you do the physician's part, So she was like, yeah. And then my other friend was like, yeah. So,
That's so
um,
cool though. I mean,
yeah,
that's so cool. You got friends like that are gonna add into that.
yeah.
So, and when are we expecting the book to come out?
Don't quote me, but I'm hoping by the end of the year.
Hey, listen, we may have to have her come back and talk to us about it, guys. You never know. Listen, I'll definitely have you come back for sure. We can talk about it then when you're ready to,
Mhm.
just do a book tour or whatever. Let me know. Reach out for sure, definitely, because I'm always down for that. I love talking about books and things. So, but that's something that's gonna be really interesting, though. So, all right. So there's something I do here on this show. Okay. So I learned this from a friend of mine. She runs a podcast called "The Shit That Goes On in Our Heads." Gretchen asked me the question. She said, "Pete, what if your mental health had a song? What would it be?" So this question to you now is: if your mental health had a song, what would it be? And it could be any song you want it to be, or however you want to break it down.
Oh,
It's a great question, isn't it?
I
She,
know. I love music, and I have like four books started, and one of them is 365 days of music, and how all of these songs impacted me.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
music is very powerful. I've had some
it is.
bands on this show here.
Mhm.
One particular called Lives Lost. They're very big into mental health. I am trying to get another one called Spirits to come on. I'm just working out the dates with them too. They're very good mental health advocates as well and things like that. So it's interesting because my choice was I said that the days where I'm feeling down is "Talk Away the Dark, Leave a Light On" by Papa Roach. Not the Carry On Word version. For anybody starts coming after me, I don't like it. I just don't like the version of it. And nothing against Carrie Underwood, great singer, just wasn't my cup of tea in that version. But that was the song I think of. In the days where it's chaotic, it just could be anything, honestly, anything like punk rock, anything really fast paced and type things like that. Because I listen to a lot of stuff. I listen to all these different bands. I check out all new stuff all the time. I meet new people all the time. This podcast has allowed me to meet so many different people. I've met Amazon international bestsellers and things like that. All these really great people, and things like that too. So it's interesting when you bring up the topic of music because I interviewed a couple bands. Hunter was one of them. Was a young lady named Lucy Lenore. She actually suffers with BPD. When she told us in the middle of the show, we didn't know that prior to this conversation, but she was big into it too. And things like that. So it was interesting because a lot of people don't think of it that way, but music really soothes you depending what it is. Doesn't matter what you're listening to. You know, when you get emotional, you turn on like something heavier, depending on what depending on whatever it is you choose at that time.
Mhm.
But yeah, Gretchen and I were talking, and that's what she said to me. She said, "Pete, what?" She let me ask you a question. I said, "Sure, what's up?" She said, what would your mental health be if it was a song?" I said, "Oh God, that's great. Great question. So what would it be?"
Yeah, I actually pulled it up on my phone. The first one of the first ones that came to my mind was "Invincible" by Pat Benatar.
There you go. Okay, okay, I
Yeah,
like that.
because we can't. And it goes. Some of the stuff goes back to what we talked about. We have to stand up and face whatever the enemy is at
Yeah,
this time. Not that we're looking for stuff at every. What situation are you in?
yeah,
And how
yeah,
can you be invincible in that moment? Because there's a way out of everything, and the Bible says that. There's a scripture that says, he takes us out of them all. He delivers us from them all, and he, there's a certain line to temptation, where the
hmm,
Lord knows how much you can take, and He's gonna only let it go so far. But you can take it further if you choose to, because He gave us free will. One of the things that He gave us was free will, so we're free to do whatever we want. We're free
yep,
to believe His word. We're free to love Him, but we're also free to walk away and live in rebellion. So it's our choice.
yeah. It's
In
it's very
any
much a choice.
moment, what we do. So, in answer to the other question that you asked me, all of my books are about, and I have two free resources on the website too.
Okay,
So go check those out.
sweet.
One of them is called Coming Out of the Dark. And those are like the 10 vital keys that I learned in my life to help me get through things, from
Yeah,
going from surviving to thriving. Because one of the things that happened to me personally was I was taking care of my dad, and he passed away. And then a couple months later, we took care of him here in the home, and I was his main caregiver. And then a few months after he passed, that's when I got diagnosed. And then I had my surgery beginning of December. And by the time October came, everybody was like, "Survivor, survivor, survivor." October is breast cancer month. And the more I heard that word, the more irritated I became, to the
yeah,
point where I was like downright angry. And I'm like, "Lord, why am I so angry at this word survivor?" And then I heard, you know, that's because, and John 10:10 came to mind. And John 10:10 is a scripture that says that He came to give us life, but not just life more abundantly. And He said, "Because I have called you to thrive, not to survive." Because survival is like being on cruise control in life.
yeah,
It's a good word. It's good to survive. It's a good thing. But if you're just surviving, that's not the life for you. It's not the life for any of us. And there are periods where we're just surviving until, like you're putting the oxygen mask on and you're breathing until you can kind of breathe on your own again. In those little snippets, it's okay. But if you're on cruise control for your half of your life, that's not okay, you
yeah,
know, because we're not called to live like that. Are things going to happen as we're moving along, and as we're, I can look back on my life and I can honestly tell you that every time a new thing was about to happen, it was like going, two steps forward and three steps back.
yeah,
you know brand new job, moving, for this job, because there's this one stretch of highway where I was living, where if you took that stretch on a Saturday, it took you 15 minutes. If you did it on a weekday work time, it took you 45 minutes. And so,
jeez.
yeah. So to move closer to the office. And while I was moving was when I had my first accident. It was a rollover, and I
Oh
broke my back, and
shit.
I was, that's when they told me I wasn't gonna, probably wasn't gonna walk anymore. So, right at the cusp of this new job, right?
Yeah,
But what was the good part? I just got onto their payroll because I was a temp. Now I'm under their insurance, as opposed to not having no insurance, or the insurance I had before, because this one was way better. So I started looking at
the positives. Yeah,
yeah. And then another one again and again and again and again, and so you just kind of have to just keep
yeah.
going,
That's
you know.
really powerful, though. I mean, they told you weren't going to walk. It reminds me of a guest I had on named Larry Volts. He had a similar story that they said he was paralyzed from the neck down.
Mm,
And Larry said the turning point for him was that he started having regaining control of his hand, even though they told him it wouldn't be possible. He said that one moment he had his hand come up, and he said he could see and he could keep it up. He said he knew that it was possible to make it. And now Larry wrote this book called The Magical Mindset.
Mhm.
And and he was telling us about that story. It was just wild. But it just kind of makes me think about when he said that they're telling you can't walk anymore. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
we're quick to say that, but we don't know for sure,
Yeah.
what the real outcome is going to be. Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's a possibility, but it's like for you to say 100% for sure, I'm like, I don't know about that, man, because
Mhm.
there's crazier things have happened, like, do you think of like stigmata, where that case in Brazil was, where the person believed in faith so much and he had gotten the wounds of Jesus,
Mm.
and but he didn't die from them, and they couldn't explain it. It's like, well, then you explain that to me. Then you tell me how that's not possible. Like, no matter what you say, you can't disbelieve that there's something there real. Like anybody that questions faith, go tell me how to explain that. Then you tell me how you explain what happened there, and then come back to me. When you get an answer, we can talk about it some more. Until then, because there's no answer that
And
it's
that's
no.
why they call it faith. And
Hmm.
for each person, it's their own walk, because my walk is different than yours. There may be some
Exactly.
similarities, you know, and the core thing is believing,
Yeah,
um, but it's a different walk,
it
and
is. It
we
is
can
one
all
hundred
take
percent.
from each other's walks, but all of the books are basically about mindset, keeping our minds secure, safe, positive, being in a state of gratitude, taking care of ourselves, not letting ourselves go. That's what mainly all of the books are about. Even when you're having days where, you feel like your addiction is just going to take over, you still have an opportunity to say yes or no.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the premise of them. I love the book. I loved having you here. It's great. This conversation is phenomenal. I'm so glad we got to do this finally, and it's just something about it just said, every time I kept reading your responses, it's like something kept telling me, we got to have her on. And this is why right here, because this great conversation happened like that, and it's just like, I'm truly thankful that you were here. I'm really glad you came. I really enjoyed this
I'm
conversation. I
like,
love learning more about your books and things like that. Looking forward to the new book for sure. It's funny though, you had breast cancer because I had Erica on. I was like, well, this is kind of weird similarities here, man. I had somebody already, and things like that too. So, but that's really great though. I'm looking forward to that new book. They'll definitely have you come back when you're ready to start really going full throttle with it. And maybe we can have the other two if they want to come on as well. We can all three of the friends on, have all three
oh,
just
that'll be cool.
we could
Yeah.
definitely do something like that. We'll figure it out though for sure. Just let me know. Keep in touch and let me know about that stuff for sure because I'm always looking to do different kind of things like that. I'm going to do a men's mental health panel here at 1 o'clock with a couple other people, so it's going to be a start something really big too. We're working on. So there's a lot of things that are in the works right now for me. I'm trying to juggle a lot of stuff too. So and all that fun stuff. So, but thank you so much for coming. I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Bruce.
Let me ask you one other question. If you could break the stigma about mental health, what would it be? I know another good one. See, when you sigh like that, I'm like, that's a really good question for her.
Because there's so much, sometimes for me it's hard to
What's the most annoying thing that you hear when it comes to that? What's the one biggest stigma that you hear that you just want people to stop thinking about and be like, hey, listen, this is really not what it is.
well, for me it's let's break the silence because people don't talk about it enough. And I feel like that if people are educated and they understand that it's not that person, they're going through something right now. How can we help them? How can we help each other? As opposed to, hey, you idiot, what the heck is wrong with you? Which is what it was years ago, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and with people very close to me, it's the drugs or it's this or it's that, and they're at that moment under the influence. It is not them,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to because I've been on both sides, right?
Yeah.
And I know that you know my friends, my family members, they act differently when they're under the influence. So how can we rein them back in? What caused them to go that route today, and just again having those conversations and helping them out and letting them know that it's okay. I mean, when I was younger, I could go to work on a Friday, come home from work on a Friday, I should say, and not talk to anybody, go anywhere, or do anything until it was time to go back to work again. I was okay with that, you
Yeah.
know
Me too.
but just having people to understand that if you had cancer or you had a heart disease or you had something else, it's more of a, oh, poor you. But when it comes to mental health and it comes to bipolarness or it comes to, these other diseases, it's like, black mold.
Yep.
We talk about that. We try to scrape it away, get rid of it, but oh, let's give you medication. You have cancer. Let's get you some chemo. You have heart. Let's get you
Yeah.
some, what do you call them? Blood thinners or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't feel like there's the same respect or help with people that are going through mental health issues as there is with
No.
other diseases,
No,
Um,
I agree 100%. Let me tell you right now, you could have just said, let's talk, stop being silent, and just went, throw the computer down, flip the desk, and just been done. That would have been it right there. Because right there, it's not me saying, it's other people saying the same thing. And the same thing, the reason why this show exists is exactly that. Is to break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. Now, there's other shows that talk about it now since I've started, which is great, but I still think we're not getting enough noise out there. And,
yeah,
I think people are way too silent or they don't know enough. And I think that education for that should start sooner. So we
yeah,
could teach these younger kids a little bit as soon as, like high school range, because that's when a lot of the emotions really start coming in. Junior high to high school, right in there is where we should start teaching them more about it.
yeah.
And we don't get the same respect as other
No,
things do, because mental health is hard to get any kind of help. It's like you need help, but where do you find it?
at
You
the
can find
risk
doctors everywhere, but you can't find anything.
at the risk of being crude, this is the Italian in me. Stop talking about sex and prevention or abstinence or whatever. Start talking about mental health. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because that's what they need help with.
It is. And we know it's a problem, but we
Yeah,
don't
it
solve the
is.
problem. We continue to brush it under the rug,
Mm-hmm.
blame guns and everything else. Inanimate objects are all at fault for everything when they don't
Yeah.
have a choice. It's the person operating it is the choice.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Whiskey were talking about that too, because it's just like all the school shootings and things like that. It's like, think about the baseline conversations you all go to. It's mental health. But
Mm-hmm.
what have you done about it since then?
Yeah.
Nothing. But you continue to allow these things to happen. These little kids are unfortunately losing their lives, and these other people, all these other things, stems all the way from Columbine, where we knew there was a problem then, but we still didn't do anything about it. Bullying was an issue. Still ain't doing anything about it. It's gotten even worse if you even think
I
about
was
it.
living in Connecticut, not too far from Sandy Hook when it happened. So
Yeah.
it was a big, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
no, but you know what I'm saying though. It's just like
violent.
it's crazy though. Like we know these issues exist, and then we don't do anything about it. And I've had a Columbine survivor on the show too. She was on in the beginning when I was doing audio recordings for it, because I do have an audio side to this. So this interview will end up on the audio side eventually, Spotify, on our radio, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like it was so interesting to get her firsthand encounter, because I didn't know the full story until she started talking, and then she's like,
Mm,
"Well, I'm in the library under the thing," and I'm like, "Oh shit." Or
yeah.
under the desk, man. I'm like, you're sitting there visualizing in your head because it's audio. You're not seeing this person. So they're just telling you about this. And you're like looking it through their eyes as you're describing this situation. She was about 6 feet away from one of the shooters and she could see the whites of his eyes. I'm like, dude, that's too close right there for this thing. Yeah, she said the original intentions were them to blow up the library, but they couldn't. They something went wrong in the process, but thank God they didn't get that far.
Mm,
But it's like we knew that was a problem then, and we still haven't done anything about it. We just, okay, we'll just sweep that under the rug. It'll be a thing else. But you want to keep blaming it though. It's like, okay, you want to keep blaming like the village idiot. You want to, oh well, that's just the village idiot doing that. Mental health, I feel like, is the village idiot, and
mm,
everything else is just the hierarchy of everything else. And it's just like, well, the village idiot is a problem apparently. So why don't we fix this problem instead of hiding from the problem or running away from the problem? Because it's really sad that that's you guys want to keep saying these are issues, but then give us more access to these things to help fix these problems, so we stop having these tragedies. These people going berserk and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Even the guy with the military base where he was going around, he freaked out when they was doing that shooting on the military base. It's like, well, how do we know it's not a problem? Well, we do know it's a problem because actually there's a guest I had on the show in the beginning, named Teddy. Teddy came on and he told us that when he went overseas, he was involved in a traumatic injury where he had gotten TMI and a couple of things that happened. His Humvee had flipped over. Like, I'm talking action movie type description. He's like,
mm,
I was knocked out 15 minutes. I had to get up and I had to fake to everybody else that I was okay around me. I knew something was wrong. Like, I was shaking up that bad. And he's like, the Humvee got blown up. And I was like, dude, I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, this is crazy. But then he came back. This is the part that really concerned me. And he's like, well, when I came back, they did a psychological exam just like they did when I went over there. And they told me I'm okay. But he's like, I know I'm not right. I know there's something not right. I'm telling you there's not something right. And he goes, hey, listen, did you check the test results from before or after?
comparison.
Okay. Didn't compare anything. He said that they only looked at the results before he went over, not the ones when he came back over. And I was like, wow, that was just like, hold on, wait, you're telling me you have problems. They checked you. they didn't look at your results from now. They looked at your ones before and told you were still okay, you're combat ready, because it was more useful for them to do it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just crazy. But anyways, guys, as we start wrapping up today, thank you so much, and I appreciate you coming to hang out with us. I got all your description, everything down below in the links below. You want to let them know where they can find you? Obviously, we thrive at life.com, right? Isn't that what it was?
Everything is on there. We thrive at life.com.
Got it. All right. And I got her link tree down there and everything else. She sent me the link tree, link to all the books, guys. Everything will be down in the descriptions, everything. But thank you so much for coming again. Like I said, we will definitely have her back when she's ready for the book. Maybe we'll have the other two ladies with us too. We're going to try and get a little trifecta going. It'd be really cool to have. And we get everybody's perspective.
Good incentive for them to, let's go.
Ladies, if you're watching this episode, I'm inviting you all to be here for when we talk about that book. Okay, you guys can. We'll make it work. Trust me. I got the power to have 10 people on this thing if I can. We'll get all 10 if I had to. But anyways, thank you so much, guys, for being here for this episode of Pete for Society. You guys know where to find me on Pete for Society on X, all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down at iHeartRadio. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety, signing out saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey,